is up, TTS audience? It is your girl, Janelle Estaa, alongside my co-host, who's never on camera,
I know. What's up?
on Toronto Talk Sports and more. And we have our special guest here, Dalton Higgins. What's up, Dalton?
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, good. So if you don't know who Dalton Higgins is, I got to get my facts straight. Toronto-based PR strategist and publicist, author of 6 books, festival and music concert producer, national magazine award-winning journalist, TV radio broadcaster and blogger, pop culture expert who has been featured on CTV, CBC, City TV, MTV Canada, Much Music, and many, many more. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that was nice. Good one. Yeah.
Like, I didn't even know I did all that stuff. So actually, my first question, I want to know, what was it like to grow up as Dalton Higgins?
Oh, that's like the money. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm kind of like a textbook multi-hyphenate,
Okay.
or polyglot. So many interests, as you just stated, right?
It's like you touched on everything.
Yeah. Can't fit me in a box. Many interests, always constantly evolving evolution. But I'm into words, So at the core, I'm a journalist, So very much into hard data, statistics, digging around for information. So if you say like basketball, I'm going to start rhyming off all of these historical tidbits and anecdotes from like 1972, the 1973. So I'm kind of one of those people, right?
Yeah.
And that actually, I have to give props to my mother because she's like very much into just reading. There are always like books and literature around the house, magazines, newspapers. So she's constantly consuming new information.
And you being that sponge, you're like, let me just absorb all of this.
Yeah, I think I picked that up through osmosis, hanging around with my mother. Yeah, to be honest, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so Dalton, good to see you again, brother.
Yeah, totally.
I know Dalton from coaching his son in basketball. He was on my You Play Nike Made Hoops team last season.
Oh, very nice.
How's Solomon doing?
Oh, he's doing great. Yeah, he's still balling out, man. Hashtag ball is life, this generation, right? This is what they're doing.
Where's he playing ball right now?
Yeah, so he's playing with New Step, which is a club, a downtown Toronto-based club, and also his school, Metro Prep. So he's at this prep school and, doing his thing there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know recently you attended an event, Future Skills, a conversation with President Barack Obama. So why don't you talk about that experience and the importance of that speech that he gave in Toronto?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. The subject matter that he was supposed to have covered, it was about the economy, to talk about being an entrepreneur. There were a lot of young people assembled, young, mostly racialized kids of color, Black youth. And the sad and unfortunate part of that event is, I guess, the moderator. Like, it's always, or what I would say, just putting this out there, always like get a good moderator, to ask the right questions and to steer the conversation in the right way. So they ended up talking about a lot of weird, like one of the questions, I'll get back on track with that. I'll answer your question, but I don't think he came, I think he came equipped to talk, he wanted to talk about the economy, economic issues, climate change, things of that nature, things that are timely, topical. And one of the questions he was asked was about, if you were to come back on this planet as a woman, what woman would you be? Like all these questions had nothing to do with economics, Yeah, so I think that's kind of threw the audience for a bit of a loop. Nevertheless, he is as cool, as polished, as pertinent, as relevant, as smart, as suave, charming as he ever was. This guy would sort of talk about economic issues impacting America and North America in general, and then go off into these sort of like basketball anecdotes. Like, you know what I mean? Like he would reference Michael Jordan and the economy. Like he's just a really cool dude, because he used the ball, right?
Yeah.
So he's just one of those super relatable, highly professional public speakers that a lot of people in their lifetime should get a chance to speak.
Absolutely. So in terms of the relevance to, he came to Toronto to give that speech, obviously. So, like, what would you say? I mean, you said the moderator wasn't that great at their job. Yeah. Do you think he was able still to relay his message?
I think so. I think a lot of people in the room that had not seen him speak in person, in real life, in the flesh. Because one thing to see your idols, icons, mega icons like the Obamas on social media, on television, CBS, Fox, CNN, but when they're like 20 feet away from you. So I think a lot of people were just greatly impacted in Toronto. Just him being there, his presence,
Yeah, just being struck
Yeah. And a lot of the young men, this idea of, if you see it, you can be it.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of the young black youth and youth of color. I think they're looking at him and just in awe. They're just like, wow, like this is a president who can, wax poetically about the NBA and at the same time having traveled the globe a ton of times, talking about issues happening in Asia, the Middle East, and also basketball, right? So they're just like, this guy's just, this guy's an amazing role model.
He was amazing at that too, having that balance.
Yeah. Highly relatable.
And connect with people,
He knows how to connect with people, yeah.
Yeah. So actually, I want to touch on you being an author of 6 books. So your 5th book, Far From Over, The Music and Life of Drake, was actually earned in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is amazing. And your Hip Hop World book, which is actually carried in the Harvard University's Hip Hop Scholar of the Year Award nomination.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. So so even just producing and whatnot, where did this love and passion of hip hop, the pop culture, come from?
Yeah, I think it came from, so I grew up, actually where we're taping this episode along Eglinton Avenue West. This is where a lot of the roots of Toronto hip hop began, ironically. So a lot of the local icons, iconoclasts, like Michie Mee, right? People sort of look at her, Michie Mee, the first lady of Canadian hip hop. She was the first,
Wow.
she was the first,
back.
way back in the days for those old enough to. But Michie Mee, I mean, she's the first Canadian rap artist rather, to get signed to a major recording contract. So she's signed to a label called First Priority Records. And so a lot of the histories, if you sort of dig deep enough, you're going to see that a lot of them connect back to Eglinton Avenue West. Now, the reason I point out Eglinton Avenue West, where there's been ongoing construction forever, we can do a whole show on that, LRT. So I grew up, off Eglinton Avenue West, right? Okay. So I just happened to grow up in a neighborhood where a lot of the origins of Canadian hip hop history happened. So it's comparable to growing up in the South Bronx, when the emerging hip hop cultures are emerging there. Cool Herc, yeah. So it's the equivalent, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So we know you're a big hip hop head. We know you love basketball, but you're also an advocate for equality and social justice. So let me ask you, where do you think in 2020, what's the climate of, social justice in Canada, more specifically in Toronto? Like, what's your take? Where are we at right now?
Yeah, I think in Toronto, we're asleep at the wheel, to be perfectly blunt. And what I mean by that is when I look at, if we take a look at something like a crime in Toronto. So there are essentially shootings happening every day. That's not hyperbole. Just turn on CP24 News. And, by and large, a lot of the perpetrators and victims are, young youth of color, black boys of color. This is just what we see. Those are the facts. So what I look at, and then I look at dropout rates amongst, young, kids of African descent, Caribbean descent, certainly indigenous, right? First Nations, original inhabitants of this land. And it's a tragedy of epic proportions, right? So how can you be, I'm, a black man, and I look at these statistics where they say, more than 40% of young black boys are not going to make it past grade 11 in Toronto. And that is a tragedy. That should not be happening. It's not even remotely acceptable. So there's a failure on the part of, there's something going on at City Hall that's clearly not working. And so we really need to, remedy this. I was talking to my mother about this, actually. She was sort of saying, yeah, John Tory, he's a great mayor. And because he came out to a couple community events, a couple Caribbean community events. And, while he's out there, kissing babies and shaking hands, the crime rate is going through the roof. We talk about the situations happening, in education, as far as economics, as far as just real estate, right? I have 2 kids, and I kind of look at the cost of housing in Toronto now versus, say, 15, 20 years ago, and I'm like, what happened? What happened to my city? It's feeling more like New York. It's feeling more like San Francisco, California. So there are just a lot of issues. I mean, that so I think a lot of work needs to be done as far as, yeah.
Absolutely, and I find sometimes they do a lot of Band-Aid fixes. Like sometimes just putting more funding into policing is not enough. Like that's like the after effects of the things that are happening.
That's what we've been doing here, though. We're saying, hey, there's $6 million more in funding to have kids play more basketball or go in hip hop studios. Those are total Band-Aid. Yeah. That's window dressing, we call it, in my world.
Absolutely.
It's just window dressing, right? Or that analogy about fishing, do you want to give people fish or teach them how to fish?
Yes.
It's like that.
Yeah.
So we're giving people fish rather than teaching how to fish. That's what we're doing in Toronto.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I actually found out something interesting in reading your bio. You worked as an award show scriptwriter for the Gemini Awards for our very own Russell Peters. How is that?
Oh, Russell Peters.
It's
Oh.
like a total like
Russell Peters is a
Yeah.
character. I
Yeah.
mean, he's wow.
something different from what you usually do.
No, he's I mean, I worked on a couple incarnations of the Canadian Urban Music Awards.
Oh, okay.
So much like how you have VH1 Hip Hop Honors
Yeah.
or the BET Awards, MTV Awards. So we did like a sort of our version of that. And so Russell Peters was the host one year, and I was, the writing background, wrote a lot of his script. Now, what he did is he sort of tore up a lot of my script, to be honest, because he's a guy, he freestyles. He does like stream of consciousness comedy. So he'll just make stuff up on the spot.
yeah.
He'll be like, "Oh, Toronto Sports Podcast," and he'll just make up a bunch of jokes. So he's a freestyle, improvisation,
Yeah.
right? The
Yes.
X tempo. That's what he does. So he didn't look at like maybe half of my script. He completely ignored when we went live. But he's also a guy too. I would say, he's kind. I don't know if he's like ADHD. Like, no, I'm
Yeah.
not saying it is, but he's just like. Just different ideas,
Yeah.
tidbits of info, really hard to
His
keep
mind's
up
just
with.
everywhere.
Oh, his
Yeah.
mind's everywhere. So sort of just scattered, but it works for him. Clearly, the guy's selling out stadiums, and
Yeah,
he's a
absolutely.
multi-millionaire. So
Yeah,
something is clearly working
Super
for him.
successful.
So you had a great
mega.
time.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah.
So just one more thing before we let you go. You have to play one of our TTS games. This one is called TTS Inventions. So I have a few props for you here. So you'll be given 2 minutes to build your own invention, and then you have to pitch it to us, like say 30 seconds or less.
Okay.
Okay?
I can do that.
Can we have a
This is like-
timer on the clock?
This is like
I was not part of this. I did not know anything about this game.
So right now, let's tell the audience, you have 5 unblown balloons, 2 foam bowls, 2 foam cups, 6 straws, and 8 toothpicks.
Okay. And I have how long? 30 seconds?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
So
Okay.
you're gonna build an invention for us, and then you're gonna pitch it to us.
Okay. Sounds good.
Got it?
Let's do
We
it.
got 2 minutes on the clock. Ready and go.
This is a lot of pressure right here. Right on the spot.
Yeah. So. 1 minute. Okay.
1 minute on the clock.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think I've.
Okay, pitch it to us, Dalton.
Okay. So, just as far as travel, like yeah, as far as air transport. So people travel, helicopters, traditional airplanes, Air Canada, WestJet, Porter Airlines, and so what I attempt to do here, I don't know why I was thinking travel, but something like a DIY, do-it-yourself, sort of indie DIY sort of travel kit for kids, that want to, like, let's say you're under 3, 3 years of age or under, and you want to, haven't quite been to Porter or Pearson Airport, and you want to build device something to
For kids.
mimic, fly, like or what do you call those, when it's called
air
a
balloon?
hot air balloon,
Oh,
like a
yeah,
hot air?
yeah.
Yeah, this is, I think the design sensibilities are kind of like a pseudo hot air balloon
Like a mini air balloon.
thing happening
Yeah.
here, right? Okay, where the people kind of sit in there.
Oh, okay.
This is where your, the consumers,
Yeah.
they buy
I
tickets.
kind of saw that where you were going when I saw you building it.
Yeah, did you?
A little bit.
Yeah, and then, this is kind of like hot air balloon mimicking that
Nice.
action, and then it's kind of like for kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Adrian, are you sold?
Yeah, I'm sold. I'm ready to invest.
That's right. Yeah, so we can look for some like venture
Yeah. What would you name it?
capitalists to fund this. What would I name it? Impromptu air balloon mechanism thingy. Impromptu air balloon thingy. Hot air balloon thingy. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dalton, for being on the show. Please let our audience know how they can contact you. Maybe throw out your social media handles.
Yeah, for sure. Just be my social media handle is Dalton Higgins. So DaltonHiggins and the number 5. Dalton Higgins 5. That's the best place to get me.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you to Adrian for being my co-host. So that's another episode of Toronto Talk Sports and more. I am your girl, Janelle Estaa. Thank you for watching. Please click the like button and leave us a comment with your feedback. And don't forget to subscribe with notifications to see more engaging and interactive content. Toronto Talk Sports and more. For the love of the six, let's connect.